it took me a long time to accept that just being with my kids all day, taking them to a museum or the library and reading them books, that is enough. That is a full-time job.
Calling all supermoms. Grab your coffee, tea, water, smoothie, wine, or a cocktail, and join us for a dose of laughter, camaraderie, and the reassurance that you are not alone. We're diving into the complexity of modern motherhood, because every mom deserves a mic drop. I'm Vanessa McAfee.
And I'm Renee Arthur.
And we are the hosts of the Motherhood Moments podcast. We are two sisters from Michigan who both had babies during the pandemic. After a few years of getting this new role of motherhood under our belts, we felt curious about how other moms are doing this mom thing. We decided to dive deeper and interview some amazing moms in our network, and we want to bring you into our network and share their stories with you.
Today, we're really excited to welcome our third guest on Motherhood Moments. Tara is joining us today. We're so excited to speak with you, ask some questions, have some laughs, and really get a good insight around your experiences as a mother. I'm so excited. Personally, this is going to be very eye-opening and informative for myself because I am a new mom. And when I think about you, Tara, I think about you as a very seasoned mom that I'm so happy that I know and that I can learn from. Welcome to the show. We're so excited to talk to you.
Yes. Welcome, Tara.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
All right. So I'm going to kick us off. How did bedtime go tonight?
That's a good question. I was not here for bedtime tonight. I was at dance
Seasoned
class and my
moms.
husband did bedtime. Every Tuesday. That's what I do. I hugged them and kissed them goodbye and left for about an hour to work out.
Tell us about your dance class.
It is every Tuesday, and it's the only time I feel like I have fun now as an adult. I don't know that I have fun enough, and we just dance for an hour. It's some of the same ladies there every week. It's a nice sense of community. My neighbor and I do the sauna after. Just some self-care, kind of spoiling ourselves. So bedtime is great.
So let me get this straight. When you came home, everyone was asleep?
Yes.
Wow.
At what time were you back home?
Okay, I was home at 7:30. My kids go to bed very early. Lincoln, my 7-year-old, he was still awake in his bed, but he wasn't quite asleep, but almost.
That's awesome. We're going to get right into our questions. We want to talk a little bit about daily life routines. Can you share a routine or life hack that has made your daily life as a mom easier or more enjoyable?
I guess this might be a life hack. I'm going to sound like a not very involved mom. I made a point, and I kind of did this on accident. I just made a point to make sure that everybody knows that in the morning, I sit on the couch with a cup of coffee and I don't do anything else. It's the one time I feel like my kids don't bother me. They might come up to me and say, "Hey, mommy, can you play this game with me?" And mind you, it's like 6:45 in the morning. And I would just be like, "Oh, I'm drinking my coffee right now." And they just know to leave me alone. And it's probably the only time the whole day. Somehow I got that message across to them that I am off limits in the morning. I'm lucky enough that my husband, he does breakfast for them. So they are getting taken care of. That's one of my mom hacks. I'm just very firm on that.
How long do you get to sit with your coffee?
Usually until my husband has made my eggs. So I don't know, 7:15, maybe 20, 30 minutes. I mean, I'm with them. We're all in the same room, but I can't get up and play first thing. And I think when I was working, I always was envious of people that could just sit and drink coffee. I was a teacher and I couldn't just sit and drink coffee. So it's just something that's important to me right now. And maybe my one really peaceful part of the day.
I love that.
Just in terms of routines, I don't feel like I'm super strict on routines, but I think we do have a general flow of how a day will go. And I do think that that helps, especially like when I'm with the kids all day.
I really appreciate that you answered the question on the more enjoyable part, because I think I don't even know if I would have been able to even answer that part. But I've focused so much
Yeah.
on just trying to make things easier.
Right.
I'm like stuck on that. I haven't even really thought about more enjoyable. So I was like, wow, that's amazing. I feel like I was there in the moment with you on your couch,
Right.
drinking the coffee.
And I want to do that.
Yeah.
I would love to work to that. And I like what you said. They just know. I know there was a process
Yeah.
probably to get that across, but now they just know.
Well, I think it happened on accident, honestly, because I was cranky and wanted coffee every morning. And I was very like consistent, no, mom's drinking coffee. It's easy now. They're just like, okay.
Okay, I have another follow-up question, kind of same topic. Could you share a moment when your daily routine had to adapt or accommodate a significant life change, either for yourself or maybe for some other person in your family?
I think one of the biggest disruptions to my mom life was COVID. And I'm sure a lot of people would feel that. So I was a full-time stay-at-home mom. Lincoln was 3.5, and we were very much on the go. I wasn't really staying at home at all. Usually I'd bring him to the gym, daycare while I did a workout first thing in the morning, like 8:30. And then we'd do a play date and then make it home just in time for a nap. And honestly, probably go back out to the park or something after nap. I just felt like I needed to leave the house every day. So COVID was crazy, very much disrupted that routine. I remember like that first week, I was really getting intense with the activities. We threw a birthday party for one of his stuffed animals, and we painted the windows like with actual paint, like, finger paint. Every minute I still felt like I had to fill. But in the end, it ended up being, I think, a really great thing because I was really doing too much. And Lincoln really enjoyed slowing down. I don't think I realized how much he needed that. And I really have not gone back to that level of crazy since. Obviously, I still go out with my kids and take them places, but we definitely enjoy our home time also, which is a really nice balance that we have now.
Wow, that's great.
It's kind of funny how I still sometimes forget about COVID, but that was the shutdown and staying inside was such a shift.
Mm-hmm.
It was such a shift. So yeah. Oh, 3.5. I can't imagine.
Yeah, because that's really like where I'm at right now. Renee and I became moms during COVID. But yeah, to have a routine and then have it all change.
Becoming a mom during COVID would have a whole other challenge, especially Vanessa. I'm sure changed your support system that you may have had and didn't. It was a crazy time.
It was a crazy time. Yeah.
It was. We're
Yeah,
always going to have these stories.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for mentioning that you're a full-time stay-at-home mom. It is a full-time job, and you're kind of one of the first stay-at-home moms that I've become friends with. Can you just tell us more and tell our listeners more about like how your family came to make that decision that you were going to stay home?
So my mom was a stay-at-home mom. So I just kind of always figured I would be. I wanted that. When I was pregnant with Lincoln, I was teaching and looking at finances. It just felt like it was something that we could make work because with teaching and the salary I was making when we were putting the cost of daycare comparing to like if I just stayed home. And then also we rent our house on Airbnb a little bit. So if I went back to work, we wouldn't be doing that anymore because it would just have been too much to manage. When looking at all those costs, we just kind of realized that we could make it work. And it's something that I wanted to do. It was definitely a lot harder than I thought it would be, just really settling into that role and feeling content with it. It took me years to feel like I was doing enough, but I love it now. And now I'm transitioning out of it a little bit with having Lincoln in full-time school, and then Jade, my youngest, is in part-time preschool. So figuring out what'll be next. But I still really like being around for field trips and that she can do part-time preschool and all that stuff.
What would you say are some of the challenges of being a stay-at-home mom?
For me, the biggest challenge was feeling like I was contributing enough. A common misconception and one that I had was that I could do everything. I could be home with the kids and do all the cooking, the cleaning, the laundry, the family management stuff. And then also like providing this beautiful childhood for my kids where I thought we'd be doing these really crafty things, hand-on things. We'd be learning every day. And all of that is just too much. So I really like just struggled with feeling like I was doing enough. And honestly, over the last almost 7 years now, I've tried to pick up side jobs, but with that never came actual care for my children outside of me. So it just has never really worked. Like if I'm the sole caretaker, that in and of itself is a full-time job. And it took me a long time to accept that just being with my kids all day, taking them to a museum or the library and reading them books, that is enough. That is a full-time job.
Yeah.
So that was my biggest challenge, being content with it. And now I love it, but it took me a while. I think it's really important. This was not a challenge for me, but I think it's really important to build then like a community because I have to see adults throughout the day. So finding other stay-at-home mom friends that I could meet up with. It's not like I'm just going to the library with just my kids. Usually we're meeting up with people. So they have playmates and then I have other adults to talk to. That has been really important for my sanity and my kids. And they have lots of playmates too.
I'm really hoping that anyone listening who maybe has never really heard this perspective and an experience like yours, it's a lot of food for thought, even for myself. I never really thought about being a stay-at-home mom, and just hearing your experience just really opens up a whole new world. So thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, of course.
We're going to talk a little bit about the beginning of your motherhood journey. And you can start it wherever you'd like, but we would like to talk about pregnancy. What advice do you have for expecting mothers on navigating the phases of pregnancy?
And it feels like it was so long ago. I'm sure it's very personality dependent. Like I need information. So for me, I had the app that would tell me like what to expect, whether it was reading a book or reading online through the app or something.
The app that shows the baby growing, like now it's a raspberry.
Yeah. I think at the time, and I'm sure it's so different now, but I want to say it was in the app, there was some like an online community where I was connecting with other moms at that phase of pregnancy. And I always find that helpful in motherhood, like having other mom friends that are at the same phase. So I remember doing that. And now I don't know how it's done. I'm feeling really old. But I think through the app, like it was like everybody who has a baby that's due January of 2017, like we were all in this little group together. Those kinds of things were helpful for me navigating because I was really the first of my close friends that I interacted with daily to be pregnant.
Well, I will tell you that my experience is pretty much exactly the same. So I don't think the apps have changed much.
Okay.
I use Pre-Mom and What to Expect. They have an app on the App Store. When Vanessa said the baby is the size of a raspberry, just for anyone listening that doesn't know what we're talking about, the apps will give you a weekly update on the approximate size of baby as it's developing. So that's what she meant by the size of a raspberry. And Vanessa's really into that. She would always send me like messages and screenshots of the photos like, BK is the size of a cantaloupe. She's really into those updates.
Yeah.
Yes, I took a photo like every month. Or was it week? No, every week. Yeah.
Oh, the belly photo?
Yeah, the belly photo with the little icon of what vegetable or fruit we were at.
Ooh, I might have to go back and look at mine. I also took a pic every week, but I never enhanced it with any like information, any metadata.
Yeah.
I have a few photos like Tara, but I wasn't consistent, of course. So I just have it like 1 week here and then I'd miss a few weeks and then I'd do the same thing. So I don't have anything consistent, but I did do that as well. Someone bought me some flashcards.
Oh, cute.
I was in a Reddit moms group. It was for all the moms having babies in May. And every month there would be like a new group. And then it would be open and then it would like close at a certain point. And then it was just completely private. So you had to join at a certain point. And that was really helpful, especially during COVID, because we were together on the whole journey. Yeah. But after I had her, I got a little bit more into wanting to meet moms in real life, but it was helpful in the beginning. All right, so get information. How did your labor experience influence your views on childbirth?
I was happy with it. I did end up getting induced at 38 weeks for barely high blood pressure. It did kind of show me that things aren't always in my control, but I wasn't like even really that torn up about it or anything. Although I did have a lot of problems with the epidural, and my best friend works at the hospital in anesthesia, and she made sure that I had the best attending do my epidural. And of course, then it stopped working, just like karma or something. They probably tried to put it back in, I don't know, many times. They were putting it into my back, and I, having to sit still. I don't know if you guys had an epidural, but you have to try to sit still. Mm-hmm. And the contractions were really strong at that point. And it took them an hour to get it back in. So that was really horrible. And then after the fact, I got a spinal headache from it. So I had to go home with narcotics because I was in so much pain from that, which made it really hard to breastfeed. My neck and back really hurt from it. Looking down was hard, and I needed a lot of help. My sister came and stayed with us that first night, and Garrett, my husband, was really helpful. But I think I went into it knowing that this is going to be hard and that it's going to hurt before, after, during. So it wasn't anything that was crazy shocking to me. I would still do an epidural again too, even though it went so horribly. It was amazing when it was working.
Yeah. Did it just stop working after a certain amount of time?
The first one, yeah, it worked, and then it wasn't even that long. I guess sometimes they can get moved, and just, it's not that uncommon. The hard thing was that it was so hard for them to replace it then.
Labor stories are always very, very intense, but beautiful, but just so many details. And one of the reasons I'm so excited for Motherhood Moments to exist is because we noticed a gap in the podcasts that are out there and the information that's out there. Where can we really find these stories? Not only hear about what happened, but also to get your thoughts and your reflection and insights and all together, especially hearing yes, this happened. And then you're speaking about it relatively positive.
Yeah, you do it again.
Yeah. And so that's great. Mm-hmm. I think that's very helpful. I know a book that I read before I gave birth was all about giving advice and believing that expecting women should hear positive birthing stories, and that if they don't, that can actually negatively impact birth outcomes. This is based off of opinion and anecdotal evidence. So that's not FDA approved, but I followed that advice, and I tried to seek out positive stories and ask questions and just ask, okay, tell me about your labor. Tell me about your labor. Because no one was talking about it. We don't have a TV show about this.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I think it's important to share the hardships of life, but especially motherhood. And I think breastfeeding is an example of that. I think a lot of new moms are really surprised that it's hard. It takes work. It doesn't just happen magically. Well, I don't know. Maybe for some it does, but for a lot it doesn't. But yeah, we can segue into that.
Yes. We wanted to ask you, did you breastfeed?
I did. And it did actually it worked out beautifully for me. But I just know that for so many moms, it doesn't. I breastfed Lincoln for close to 2 years. I really loved it. It's a good bonding experience. I also knew that after Lincoln, I was probably going to adopt. And so I knew that it was likely my last and only opportunity at breastfeeding. So we kind of hung on to it for a little bit. But for most moms, I know it didn't come that easy, or they didn't breastfeed at all. And so I think whatever works best for mom and baby is really what matters.
Mm-hmm.
There's not really much notable about our breastfeeding experience.
I think it's notable that you did it for 2 years. That's notable.
Yeah. And I was not forced into stopping, but I had a business trip, which was weird. It was one of those side jobs I tried out for a short period of time. And I was like, well, if I'm leaving town for the weekend, I guess we'll just stop. Because he was almost 2 and it just felt like it was time. And it worked. I cried at the airport, but it all went fine.
Yeah, the breastfeeding journey does end kind of unexpectedly, I feel like sometimes. So that's also like normal. Like you might have something in mind.
Yeah.
I know for me, I developed really bad eczema in my hands, and there was something going on with the hormonal shifts and my eczema. And so I just had to stop to even try to like start to take steroids or try to even address that health concern that just popped up out of nowhere. I breastfed for 18 months and my hands started bothering me at 13 months in. So I tried to hang on, but I would remember like breastfeeding him and then feeling my hands just like on fire, itching 5 minutes later. And it was just like, wow, I never saw this one coming. But
yeah,
you never know what's going to happen.
Just never know.
Like this is very, very random.
I mean, that is parenting.
Yes. Side note, my eczema on my hands is still bothering me.
It's still a problem. Yeah. We're still troubleshooting though.
But they said postpartum lasts for 7 years.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So the part of some of the information that I like to consume is more on the population level or like trends. I'm really into those type of like fun facts. And I'm always reading like the news articles that are coming out about that. My algorithm is always feeding me data like and articles like that. And earlier this year, they did announce that postpartum lasts for 7 years in some phase. It's like it's changing, but our bodies do not go back to normal for 7 years.
Maybe our feet will shrink back, Tara.
That would be great.
Tara just discovered that her foot is a little bigger. We wear the same shoe size now.
I've been wearing a size too small for years.
What size you were wearing?
I was in like the cute little 9.5. Like I'm a 10, but not really. But now I'm solidly.
Me too.
I'm solidly like like looking for 11s.
Yeah.
And I'm confused about that. It's an identity crisis for me.
Yeah, I know. It was hard. I had to get rid of all my shoes.
Tragic. These are the things that no one tells you. Just one more note about the breastfeeding, just because everyone does have their own journey and timeline, but there are women out there who really want to do it and sometimes don't have the support system around there. So we wanted to make sure we ask what support systems, resources, or any professionals that you feel like were very crucial in your breastfeeding journey.
I would definitely say ask for a lactation consultant at the hospital. I think most hospitals have them. And then I think it was like even overnight asked for a different one. And it was like a different shift basically. And then the next one was really helpful. That's a moment where you're really trying to learn, to latch, to figure that out. So to me, that was really helpful.
If you can remember, what made you ask for the lactation consultant, or did you just like go into it knowing you were going to do that?
So I happened to meet one of them at a Christmas party like 2 or 3 weeks before I delivered. And she was the one that ended up being helpful for me. So I met her at a party. I learned that was her job at the hospital that I was going to be at. And then once I was there, like I knew that existed and that I should ask for one. I don't know that I would have otherwise. And I don't know if it's like an automatic thing, if they would have sent someone or not, but I made sure to ask.
I think that's a really great point, just to actually speak up and ask if a lactation consultant doesn't just automatically come to your room and check on you. And even if the first one maybe is not helping you that much, shift change, they do happen because you're there for a while. The same thing happened to me. My first lactation consultant was helpful, but the one that came on for the night shift, she was really amped up, very animated, like, okay, come on, baby, like just brought this whole new other energy. And I think during that time, like the energy in the room and energy of others can make such a big difference. I was so happy that change happened. And that's when I was able to get my first latch. So definitely, I think they're very helpful. And then I know at my hospital system, there was a phone line, like a hotline, where you could reach the same lactation consultants at the hospital. You could just call them And so I continued to use kind of the same resource. I wasn't in the hospital, but I would always call them. I would bug them all the time. Any questions I had. I had a breast injury at one point and they helped me get through that. And so, yes, they are a very helpful resource at the hospital.
Yes. And after, I think it was going to see the lactation consultants was what actually led us to understanding that there was some other stuff going on with Lolo and that she maybe needed physical therapy and occupational therapy for her latch. It was before the pediatrician, I think, would have even noticed it.
I was in the thick of the formula shortage that happened, which was really horrible.
Tell us about that.
There was a couple large factories in 2021 that had big recalls of infant formula, and that led to a nationwide shortage in the stores. People were panic buying it, kind of the same thing with toilet paper at the beginning of COVID. So there was a smaller supply, but also people were panicking and hoarding. So then the stores implemented a lot of rules, like you could only buy 2 cans at a time. And then if you found it on Amazon, it was marked up maybe 2 or 3 times higher. And the price of the formula overall just skyrocketed. And so I would sometimes have to drive 30, 40 minutes just to get a can of formula. So it ended up adding kind of some increased pressure on me to continue to breastfeed. I wasn't so solidly oh yeah, I can always just go to formula. I had a lot of anxiety about finding formula, just extra stress. Something else to deal with.
I think that must have been very stressful.
This is before inflation really hit everything. And so it just kind of felt unfair. I felt the government could have done much more to help, but maybe there was too much going on. Eventually they stepped in and brought formula from other countries, but it was really rough at first. You couldn't find anywhere.
You could just not even find it at a store that you went to?
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't realize that it was, I knew about the rationing, but I didn't realize that it was sold out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so it depended on the store. So I started figuring out that CVS did a better job of staying stocked up. So I would hop stores, but only CVS's. If you went to a grocery store or a Target or anything like that, it was just gone.
Wow.
And then sometimes I think I would switch to Walgreens. And sometimes if I couldn't find it at CVS, I could find it at Walgreens. And I just think that there was less people looking there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was something else. Okay. We are going to switch topics, talk about adoption a little bit. And we really want to let you know that feel free to share anything that you feel comfortable with and anything you feel like that would be useful for our listeners. Could you share a poignant moment or story from your adoption journey?
My daughter, Jade, she's 3.5. So we still have, I think, lots more stories and experiences to have. And she doesn't have a whole lot of things to say on it yet. But for me, I think the most emotional part still was when we went to pick her up from the hospital. So it was April 2020, which that in of itself was just a crazy time. We've talked about that. And it was a crazy time to go to a hospital. Pushing all that aside, adoption in general is often, I find myself between 2 really conflicting emotions. And that day was a day that I think I would have thought would have been only joy and happiness, but it actually was probably the most heartbreaking experience that I've ever been a part of. Just having a mother hand a baby to me was really hard. And I think about it a lot still. What could I have said different or how I could have acted different? I don't know. And it's really not even about me at all. It shouldn't be. But that moment was just very surreal and I think forever etched into my mind. And watching her, Jade's first mom, just walk away and thinking, what were those next moments like for her? And then driving home with Jade and just thinking, I don't know, all of those things. What is Jade feeling right now? I mean, at the time she was 2 days old, she was sleeping, but it was heartbreaking. And it still is when I think about it. That experience was something else for sure.
Yeah, wow, that's very deep. Thank you for sharing. Your experiences are very just valuable for us to hear. You're really capturing the depth of the human experience, and motherhood is so entangled in that from so many different perspectives. I like how you just mentioned and acknowledged that it wasn't just one thing.
And this has given me such a different perspective of motherhood. I thought when I first started going down the adoption route that the idea of my child having two moms would make me uncomfortable or insecure. And I think like every adoptive mother has moments where she might feel that. But to me, it's become so beautiful that my daughter has two moms. Her first mom did so much for her. It's definitely redefined what a mother can be. So I think that she is also has been a mother to Jade in very different ways than I have. But motherhood isn't just one thing. There's multiple ways to love a child like a mother.
And I'm sure so many of our listeners can relate to that because of all the different ways that people grow up with sometimes having two moms or a grandma that's like a mom, and just so many different ways that motherhood really shows.
We're really hoping to bring those stories to our listeners. There's so many layers to motherhood, and we want to hear about as many as we can because it's not just one thing, one experience. And even when you became an adoptive mom, you had already been a mom.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't your first experience.
Mm-hmm. What unique challenges have you faced as an adoptive parent?
There are still probably many challenges to come as Jade starts having more questions and we navigate her needs through that. It is that conflict of ideas and just how to, navigate that. Jade is one of my greatest joys as her mother, but not being with her birth family is such a great sorrow. And I think about that a lot and struggle with that and like how to help her through that. That is probably another struggle of mine is making all of these assumptions and predictions about what she's going to need and how she's going to feel. And I remember, Vanessa, you said something to me once where I was like, oh, this happened to me today. Someone thought I was the nanny. And I was like, it was upsetting me because I was thinking about how she's going to feel when that happens. And you were just like, it'll be really interesting to explore her opinions on that someday. And that's really stuck with me because I constantly need to remind myself that she is going to have her own opinions on all of this. And my job as her mother is to listen, hear her and help her through that. And also not trying to fix things. We all want to fix things for our kids. And Jade came into my life as this beautiful newborn that I knew some of the struggles she was going to have. And I think there's lots of mothers that feel that in different ways, if it's a special needs child or other things. But with me, with Lincoln, I just had this beautiful little baby and I just got to be kind of naive for a while. With Jade, I've always thought about how can I fix her pain? But then reminding myself, I don't really know how she is going to feel about all this. Those are all kind of various struggles that I'm having right now, but it's definitely going to be ever changing because right now it's really just within me and my own feelings on it. I don't have much from her yet to try to help her with.
You're such a great mom.
I know.
Thanks. Thank you.
Just how you're sharing with us how much you think about her. Oh, so much love. We all just feel the love from Tara.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks. That means a lot.
What advice would you give those considering adoption or foster parenting?
I really want to make sure that I say that there is like a really strong narrative out there coming from adoptive parents. And I know that there's a lot of adult adoptees right now who really want to be listened to and heard. And they're out there and they're providing their stories, which I think is just so valuable. So that's my advice. Every adoption is different. Every story is different. And so it's not like even listening to one adoptee is going to give you everything. They all have different experiences and opinions. But definitely, I would say seek out adult adoptees and hear what they have to say. Because sometimes it can be hard at first to hear some of the negativities. I definitely felt that at first too. But our children, my child, might someday have some of those feelings and some of those things to share. So I think it's important to hear what they have to say. There's so many resources now from them that That would be my biggest advice. I don't want to be careful not to give too much advice because I'm only a few years in. I just think it's really important that birth moms and the adoptees are best interests are put first. As adopted parents, as parents, we put our kids first. And so I think the same would go for as an adoptive parent.
Thank you so much for sharing. I think this is super important simply because I know adoption can look so many different ways, including even adoptions within your own family. It happens a lot in our communities. It's just a topic that I want us to talk about. I'm so happy that you're here sharing your narrative and perspective and insights, because we may never know when we are going to have adoption come into our lives personally, or a friend or cousin or our own children. Like, we just don't know. So it's just becoming sensitive to the topic, I think, is a very good idea. Just learning and taking in everything you're saying. And I definitely want to seek these resources out and just learn more, for sure.
Me too. Yeah. I think I'm going to seek out some of those things too. It's not something that I have explored. I know several people that are adopted personally, but just getting to hear people's stories is so great.
And I think, like everything else, it's helpful to learn even just like sensitive language around it. I just saw on Facebook a friend with really good intentions posted that she wanted to raise money to adopt a family. That phrasing can be really triggering to some adoptees, because adoption should be a permanent thing. Even if you're not like personally affected by adoption, it's good to seek out resources, because there are lots of people who are adopted, and you never really know if you might be inadvertently saying something that is a little insensitive.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it's our job to educate ourselves on how to use inclusive language. So our final question, what's your normal evening routine? What do you do after bedtime, after the kids go to bed?
After the kids go
to bed, like, what do you do?
Honestly, spend the evening then with my husband. So we have a hot tub and we go in it almost every night, maybe have a drink, and then come inside and watch TV. Kind of lame, but we're tired at that point. We just want to watch TV.
Oh, the hot tub
The hot tub is amazing. Yeah, that was a 2020 purchase. That was our 10-year wedding anniversary that summer. And so we couldn't really do anything fun. So we got a hot tub. It's been great. I would recommend that to parents because you don't need a babysitter. You can just step outside. We've got some nice lights out there and it feels a little special. We don't have to go through the whole ordeal of a date.
Amazing. Is the hot tub difficult to maintain?
I don't maintain it. I mean, I do most other things around the house. That's what he does. And I think he just tests the water every now and then and throws chemicals in. You have to keep up on it. If you didn't, then I think the water would get pretty gross.
Okay.
He cleans it out every few months.
Got it. That sounds amazing.
It is amazing. You guys should come over.
And that's a wrap. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of the Motherhood Moments podcast. We appreciate you because we know life gets busy. Maybe you are doing chores during nap time, on a walk, running errands, or rinsing berries. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. Vanessa and I are committed to keep sharing more motherhood wisdom. If you enjoyed this episode, please support us by leaving us a review. That's a wonderful way to show your support and let others know they are not alone. Until next time, and remember to check